Welcome to Having a Drink with Mink. I'm your host, Jason Mink, and today I'll be having this drink. Right off the bat, let's talk about what's new. Let's talk about what's you. Let's talk about Yeet Presents number 30. That's right, Yeet Presents is the official publication of Old Guys Who Like Old Comics. Every month, Yeet Presents brings you the finest in black and white anthology storytelling, from comedy to military and even a little bit of fantasy. That's right, folks. Creators both professional and up-and-coming can be found on Yeet Presents. Issue 30 is in your mailbox right now, and our big Halloween issue is right around the corner. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? By all means, follow the link below, and please subscribe to Yeet Presents. You won't regret it. I know I don't. Right off the bat, we're going to get to some questions. You guys had asked me some questions. I'm going to do my best to answer them with the assistance of Old Guys Who Like Old Comics co-administrator Dennis Miller, who's off camera.
How you doing, folks?
He's there, trust me.
So, Buddy Harvey asked, how do you feel about reboots in comics? Ooh.
You know, Buddy, I was okay with reboots in comics in the 80s, in the 90s, even in the 2000s, actually. All of those additions seem like natural, organic outgrowths of a continuity that I've been following since I was a kid, but one time too many is one time too many, and I feel that both DC and Marvel have gotten so far away from what made those comics what made me interested in them that it's hard to even care about reboots. I couldn't even tell you what's going on in Marvel Comics right now. I stopped reading comics in 1986.
Okay, so Clayton Murwin. Hey Clayton, we know Clayton very well. If you could only have one comic out of your collection, which one would it be and why?
You know, I thought long and hard about this, and this was a real hard one to actually come up with an answer to, but the bottom line is, I've had 3 collections in my time. As a kid, I had my childhood collection, which was thrown away as a result of a bad report card. I had my teenage to 20s collection, which I sold off because I needed the cash and kind of lost the way comic book wise for a while. And then I have today's collection, which has never been better, which has never been healthier. Today's collection is built upon the last piece of my second collection. I'd sold pretty much everything off. And I was going through some old books years later, probably like 2007, 2008. All my comics were gone. I'd flipped open an old copy of Varga's art book, big hardcover, and right in there between the front cover and the first page was this Amazing Spider-Man number 28. Now, I picked this book up, in the early 80s. I paid $3 for it from a dealer who was grousing quite a bit that if it had been in better condition it would have been worth more money. But I was just happy to have it because Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, this was the real stuff. And amazingly enough, it survived when all of these other comics haven't. I have a dozen or more long boxes at this point full of comic books, but this is the book, when it comes right down to it, that built that third collection. So I'd have to say Amazing Spider-Man number 28.
Eric Salazar. Eric?
Hey, Eric.
If you could match drinks with comic titles, what would the pairing be?
That's a fantastic question, actually, and I composed a very thoughtful answer for that. For something cosmopolitan like Iron Man, I'd suggest a single Walt Miskey Or a malt whiskey, if you'd be so obliging. Balvenie, if you can get it. For you indie comics lovers, you'll want some overpriced craft beer. Something that's way too strong with berries and seeds and crap in it. For your Archie titles, I'd recommend something light and breezy, like a Lazy Lizard or perhaps a Pim's Cup. And for your Charlton Gold Key, Night Train or Mad Dog 2020. Just get right to it. You know what I mean? Those comics got right to it. You might as well get right to it too.
Todd Higgins.
Higgins!
What did you read for breakfast?
What did I read for breakfast, Todd? That's a great question. I actually read Chilling Tales of Terror, and this is a sweet little anthology. I'm not really sure what it reprints, but these would appear to be like pre-code horror books. I'll maybe jump to a cut and show you what's inside, but picked this up a couple months back, threw it in the pile, and just grabbed it this morning, and was tremendously entertained, edified. When it comes to old comics, this is the real deal, baby. Even if it's a magazine.
Ron Hartley asks, who are your top comic characters?
Oh, that's a fantastic question, Ron. And I can tell you right off the bat, because I have a pile of them right here. Martial Law, number 5. Fantastic deconstruction of the superhero mythos that had been built for over 40 years. This was a great little book. Followed it from the time it started up until its most recent incarnation, and I highly recommend Martial Law. If you like The Boys, this is the real stuff. Number 4, I would have to say, The Badger. Ladies and gentlemen, the Badger is one of my all-time favorite comic book characters for reasons that I've gone into before. Here's my copy of number 1. I'm super happy to have it still to this day. And got number 2 and a bunch of the other ones back in the short box. And hopefully at some point in time I'll reread them and do like a quarter box review for you. Number 3, I would have to say, as far as favorite characters go, we're going to go right back to Spider-Man, because Spider-Man he's been there for as long as I've been there, as far as I can remember. From the time I picked up a comic book, Spider-Man was there to entertain me, and he's still there to this day, as evidenced by my copy of Amazing Spider-Man 28. Moving on, number 2, Milk and Cheese. I consider them one character because, you know, they're lactose-based, by all means, you know. You have a wedge of spite, and you have a carton of hate. You can't go wrong. Evan Dorkin, this is some great shit right here. And number 1, I gotta say, Mr. Monster. When it comes down to the ultimate distillation of old comics, horror, snarky humor, Mr. Monster pretty much has it all. We'll get into Mr. Monster at length in the future, but number 1 right here, folks.
David Hill asks, what do you do with your comics when you're getting up there and none of your kids give a damn about them?
Yeah, that question comes up a lot, and that's a real hard question to answer, because these books are important to us. The medium means something more to us. It's not just a pile of paper in the corner. It's not just something that we waste our time on. It's something that we're invested in. It's something that we feel a great deal of passion and resonance with. And so it's really hard to say, because some of these books were published in numbers, you know, up into the, you know, 100,000s. How many copies of, you know, Yogi Bear 234 in mint condition does the world really need? It's really hard to say. For me personally, I just hope that they're disseminated to people who appreciate them. When it comes right down to it, I wouldn't want them to end up somewhere in a big lump. I'd want them to be, I don't know, maybe have a party and invite everyone in Pittsburgh who's a member of the group, or everyone in the group, to just come and take some comic books from my collection. You know, like that would be what I wanted to do with these books, is the idea that they might end up in your hands, you know, because not everyone is in a position to do that. Liquidate, David, liquidate.
Kevin Gleason asks, how old were you when you last dreamt you had superpowers?
9. I was 9.
All right. Okay. CM, I'm assuming that's Clayton again, asks, what is your secret to old guys who like old comics? What makes the group so successful?
That's a great question, Clayton, and the answer is you. And you. And you. And the guy behind you. And that guy. Yeah, and he's hiding, but him definitely for sure. And all those guys back there, and the dudes at the bar who can't actually be bothered to sit here while we're shooting, all of you guys are what makes the group a success. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting in front of my computer laughing at my own jokes. When it comes right down to it, it's all about a sense of community, and you know, we endeavor to provide that. And you guys have really stepped up, and you guys make it a point to bring your work, your joy, your passion to the group. And if it wasn't for you, like I said, it wouldn't be much anything at all. So.
Louis Fineberg asks, why is there air?
Why is there air? Why is there air? Louis, why is there air? There's air to blow up volleyballs. There's air to blow up basketballs. Louis! Why is there air?
Warren Muzak asks, have you ever opened a comic thinking you've never seen the issue before, only to see the splash page and realize that you had?
Actually, I do the reverse of that all the time, because I buy coverless comic books. And I'll buy a coverless comic book thinking that I don't have it, get it home and discover actually I do have it with a cover. But quite often my coverless comics end up being in nicer condition than the comics with covers, so it's kind of a hybrid, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Ryan Linne asks, this is kind of personal, toilet paper roll, over or under?
Sideways.
Is that everybody?
Time.
I mean,
every time sideways.
Just sitting on the back of the tank.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sitting on the because there's like the thing
The
there.
vanity.
And right, exactly.
Right, there you go.
Sideways.
All right. Warren M. asks, what were the most issues you've ever found you wanted or needed from the dollar bins?
Oh, right on. About 6 months ago, there was a little convention in Pittsburgh. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it escapes me at the moment. I got there about an hour early and still had to wait in line. A lot of people showed up for it. I did a couple rotations around looking for stuff, pecking through the dollar bins. Saw some old guys, but didn't really have a whole lot of luck. And then saw some boxes underneath someone's table, and a quick look got me this nice little stack of Marvel superheroes featuring the Incredible Hulk. Now these are great little books because they reprint the Hulk series from the early 1970s, and I'm not necessarily in a position to buy those books new, so to be able to get a big old stack of them, these were, I think, like 3 for $1, and some of them have never even been read. They're in fantastic condition, and granted, sometimes these reprints aren't the best printing wise, and they'll occasionally be missing a page or two, but I figure for about $12, that's a lot of reading, folks, a lot of good reading.
Darn right.
So that would be probably my best score, although if you talked to me 3 months ago or 6 months before that, I could probably pull out just as large of a pile.
Tom Hanford asks, a little off the beaten path, but are you a fan of Frank Zappa? Asking because your approach in some of these videos have a very Zappa-esque humor?
That's a weird question, man. That's a really weird question. Yeah, actually, I'm a big Zappa fan. I've been listening to Zappa since I was a teenager, and there's still a tremendous amount to discover as far as the conceptual continuity goes. I chose this particular album to highlight because if you're a reader of heavy metal in the early 1980s, you might have read a comic called Ranxerox, and this was the artist who illustrated Ranxerox, and he also illustrated this cover, a famous concert in Zappa's history. There's a whole story that goes along with this. Look into it, kids.
Geoff Chisholm asks... Chisholm asks...
Oh, Geoff Chisholm was going to ask me a question.
Worst comic ever, like the one you most truly despise.
Anything with Super Baby or a Flash with a giant head. As a kid, when my parents would bring home like those DCs with, Super Baby in them or DC characters with giant brains, I hated that stuff. That was just hot garbage as far as I was concerned. And it tainted DC for me for years, to be honest with you. It wasn't until I was a teen that I realized there was a little more to DC than that kind of babyish crap.
Here's another one without a name, but it asks...
That's my fault. No, that's Larry's fault. Damn it, Larry.
You can't entrust him with things like that.
You just can't.
What comic would you want to be buried with?
I'm not going anywhere. Moving on.
And Kerry Callen asks, is this the end of the episode?
No. Why would you be so presumptuous?
Yeah, damn,
Dear
Kerry.
God, man.
Wow.
Actually, it was going to be the end of the episode, but it turns out I got some mail. And it's mystery mail. I don't know who sent this particular package to me, but we have this fantastic book right here, and it's all about life in comics. Bill Mantlo. Very excited to check this out. A celebration of the life and work of Bill Mantlo, featuring previously unpublished material. Now, like I said, this book was a mystery gift. You didn't tell me who sent it. I was given a message that said, Jason, thank you for your tireless effort at Old Guys Who Like Old Comics, our virtual clubhouse. According to Amazon, Mantlo, A Life in Comics is a benefit book with all proceeds being donated towards the cost of Bill's medical expenses. Pass it on, folks. If you're looking for a fantastic book to read or a fantastic book to give, I can't recommend Mantlo's A Life in Comics enough. Thank you, mystery donor, whoever sent this book my way. And there's actually one more segment. We're going to go outside now, folks. Join me, won't you?
Make it a point to take a look around up here. Ooh, it's pretty spooky. Seems very dangerous, doesn't it, folks? We're very high off the ground. Look, the cars, they seem like they're being driven by ants. Ooh. But it turns out we're not just alone up here with the birds. We do, in fact, happen to have Kenner's class of 1978 to 1980 Star Wars 12-inch action figures, and they're up here with my drink. Fabulously enough, I'm certainly happy to see them as a result of that.